Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Let's wait a couple of seconds that people will actually join the room. Today's a good day, not just because the weather, which is super hot anywhere in Europe, but because we are going to present a very interesting call for the International Journal on Managing Project in Business. So my name is Francesco Di Maddaloni. I am the editor-in-chief of the journal. And today, I have the pleasure to have Reinhard with me talking about this very topical and actual call for paper. So people at the heart of projectification, the thinking, agency, identity, and value creation. I will remind the participant that this webinar is recorded. So then after the end finish, of course, there is availability for any prospective authors to go back and see what has been discussed. I'm going to introduce very briefly the journal before I'm going to leave the stage to Reinhard and explain a little bit what the special issue is and what the expectations are. First of all, we have reworked the aim and scope of the journal. So since I took over almost 1.5 years ago, I work closely with Natalie Drouin, which is the other co-editor-in-chief, and the team of associate editors to position the journal more clearly and also a way to differentiate among the 4 project management journals. As it is at the moment, the International Journal on Managing Project in Business aim to position itself as a bridge between academia and project management practice by publishing articles grounded in rigorous, practice-informed research that delivers actionable insight and advanced theory, methods, and the profession. Here, one of the main focus for the journal is, of course, build upon theories in order to have clear practical implication. This is something that we have found lacking in a few of the articles that have been recently published among the journals in project management. No strong understanding of what are the managerial implications of the work, of course, building towards a strong theory. So this is what we try to implement in our journal, of course, building from a theory and then have a clear practical implication. We, as the journal, look for top quality theoretical empirical research. Yeah, so theory is extremely important, remain important in any academic work, but then how empirical evidence will basically provide and promote the understanding of project management is extremely important. We remind our audience that the journal is basically rooted in social science. It's something that is extremely important, and one of the reasons of rejection, mainly one of the major reasons of rejection is that we are not interested in over technical papers based on modeling, algorithms, and applied mathematics. You can see some numbers on the bottom of the presentation. The impact factor is growing. We had a 3.1 last year, and we, cross finger, expect the impact factor to grow again this year. The fight score is 7.1, should grow again, finger crossed, and the acceptance rate on average among the 5 years of data that we have is 14.3%. The time to submission to the first decision, if the paper has been accepted or measure revision or rejected, is on average 35 days. So it's a pretty much quick process from when you submit the paper until when you receive the first response from the editor, if not just rejected. Here is the team very briefly. As you can see, there is a spread in geographical location, and I will take the chance to say that we are looking for another associate editor that will join the team. So we soon will be launching a call for a new associate editor. As you can see, the team is expanding and is covering broader geographical locations. What is really important is that to align that the journal is a healthy journal. Yeah, it's going through a constant growth trend. As you can see, also the site score is increasing and the impact factor is also increasing. We are working hard to build strategy in order to highlight what the possibilities for growing in different rankings are and how to reach a better ranking in different indexing. As you can see, we are ranked in the main measure indexing rankings, and this is really important, especially for academics that want to publish high quality research. Something that is really important, as you can see, the increase in submission since last year. We also the increase on number of publication. Even though last year we were able to publish in the end 64 papers, we received an astonishing number of 531. Today, the latest numbers say that we have already received 250 submissions and 30 papers have been accepted. Of course, those 30 papers are also the ones submitted last year that went into the review process and now are finally published online and entered an issue as well. As you can see, the acceptance ratio, the last year was only 12.1%. So basically, even though the number of publication is increasing, the number of submission increased, but the number of rejection also increased. So giving a 12.1% acceptance ratio, which means just above 1 out of 10 of papers submitted will then be published, which highlights the demanding and high quality that the journal wants to have in place. Really, really interesting, as I said, so 35 days is the average time to reach the first decision. The acceptance to publication takes an average of 39 days. And what is extremely important, especially for developing countries, that there is no publication charges in order to publish with the International Journal on Managing Project in Business. 3 manuscript types. Of course, we have the classic research paper, which is a standard empirical or theoretical research paper. And then we have introduced 2 more types of publication. The first one is called prospective. Prospective is by invitation only, and is a short, thought-provoking opinion piece written by invited authors that are already established, been really established in the project management field. Another one that is really interesting for a practitioner is the crossroad. Basically, crossroad, again, is a shorter piece of work compared to a standard empirical paper, but is a phenomenon-driven paper with a practical focus and written together by practitioner and academics. Basically, a practitioner has to team with an academic, and both have to write what we call a crossroad piece of work, which of course is an academic publication. It goes into peer review, double-blinded peer review. So the review process is the same. The only difference is that it has a practitioner focus and is written together by practitioner and academics. 3 simple rules for publishing with us. First of all, as you may know, read the aim and scope of the journal. Most of the rejection are due by poor understanding of what the requirements of the journal are not fit for the journal, are over technical, or have nothing to do with project studies or project management. So reading the aim and scope of the journal will help to understand if your work is fit for purpose or not. Another rule, read the author guideline. Some of the papers are rejected because they don't follow the expectation and style of the journal. So for that reason, the author guidelines clearly states and explain what is needed to be included in the journal and what the structure of the journal should look like. Rule number 3 seems, a kind of given for granted, but read published article in the same journal. This does not apply, of course, only for managing project in business, but in any journal you aim to publish, right? Read published article in such journal. It helps to understand what type of contribution the journal looks like, is looking for. Also, what kind of framing you should give to the paper, what kind of quality is expected by the journal. So reading published article in the same journal, of course, is extremely important, because then you will build also on the right literature that has been used in order to frame then your research question and problem to be solved. Again, what kind of papers we want at the managing project in business. We position ourselves as a bridge between academia project management practice. Yeah? So the practical implication of the study have to be clear. And this practical implication, of course, has to be driven by a theoretical perspective. The theory helps you to make sense of your data. Helps you to understand the meaning of your data and then propose any advancement to the profession. So for that reason, we look for rigorous practice-informed research that delivers actionable insight and advances theory, methods, and the profession. Ambitious idea with rigorous research, out-of-the-box thinking that develops concepts and theories, and robust and transparent research design. Most of the time, I struggle to understand which data do you have. I struggle to understand how did you move from the raw data to your interpretation. So I struggle to see a transparent process of data collection, the analysis. And this must be really clear when you try to publish. Of course, you need to have an engagement and contribution for a specific audience, and our audience is the project scholarship. And this is extremely important that you build on the right literature and you talk to the right audience. In this case, our audience is the project scholarship, project managers, project professionals, and project management academics. So very important reason for rejection is the lack of engagement with the literature, and what we really look at is that practical contribution led by a clear theoretical perspective. So basically, this is what the managing project in business is moving forward now, to have this kind of practical contribution, of course, driven, led by a clear theoretical perspective. Relevance and rigor. This is what is expected, from the journal. Follow us. We have different channels. If you are in China, we have WeChat. If you are in the other side of the world, LinkedIn. Here is the best way for you to understand what is going on, what kind of papers have been published, what kind of special issues are on, and to engage with the community. So we are here in order to help to get published and not to be rejected, right? So our scope is actually to publish good quality paper, rigorous papers, and not to reject. So please get in touch with us and you will receive all the support needed to get your paper published. So thank you very much. I'm gonna stop sharing and give the stage to Reynard for the special issue itself. And then we're going to leave after the end of the presentation, we're going to leave space for any question and answer that you may have. Reynard, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Francesco. I think you presented the journal. Now I'm going to present our special issue and why did we push it, and what it is about, and what we encourage the participants really to contribute to our special issue, which is called People at the Heart of Projectification. So we put people at the heart of a concept or phenomenon that we see also increasingly in research, which is called projectification. I will explain a bit later. And the subtitle of it is Rethinking Agency, Identity, and Value Creation. So that's what we like to see. So here you see the team. I start from my own picture at the very left. I'm very international, so I work at the University Alma Mater Europaea, which is a European university. We run a PhD program, and I also see two participants here in the call who do in-depth research in project management and specialize in that. So this is why such a special issue is also of high interest to our PhD students. But I'm also engaged in Stellenbosch University, where you see also Taryn Bonbana, who is a professor at the Stellenbosch University, joining the team. I'm teaching also at the Reykjavik University in Iceland, where you see Helgi Thor Ingersson, also professor in the Advanced Project Management Master. And I have two colleagues, one from Berlin, Yannick Kalf at the University in Berlin, and Mladen Radujkovic, who is also at the Alma Mater Europea in Maribor. So that's what we are basically doing. Now let me just click here on the right slide. I think, Francesco, you explained what you expect from, let's say, the authors. I have also highlighted what we expect for the special issue, because if we have a special issue, and I will outline the focus and the aims for it, and also some potential questions you could answer, we look for novel contributions in that field. We also see and want to see the theoretical ambition that you bring with your article. So it should not be only just a case study or a description of a practical phenomenon. We always want to have a theoretical link to one of the theories, and I will also explain what kind of theories are relevant in our field. So as Francesco also mentioned, it's a social science phenomenon, and projectification is or sits very much in there. So it should also bring for the society, let's say, some benefits and recommendations. So, and I will also explain what that could be. But still there, our scope is pretty broad. So you can look into different lenses or aspects of that topic. And that's very interesting for us, especially if we go into new directions like psychology or philosophy or many other disciplines that are not yet elaborated a lot in the project management journals. So sometimes I'm a bit curious to see from which lens someone is looking into through the paper. So we are very much interested in interdisciplinary, and I would also say cross-functional view into our topic. So now, what is our topic all about? I think since about 30 years or more than 30 years, academics are looking into projectification, which is basically the phenomenon where we see more and more projects are performed in organizations. But it's not only the number and importance of projects in organization, but it is also the transformation that goes with that. And the transformation may position projects in a very different context or at a different level. We also see in organization that there's more attention on projects and project management and the project managers. We see the establishment of PMOs and many other things. And that was very much elaborated in the first years of this topic. That's if you look at the illustration on the bottom right, you see the projectification lens as a managerial approach. So it was more on the meso level, on the organizational level, looking into management implications. But now in recent years, I would say the focus broadened intensively. So you see, it's also seen as a philosophical issue. It's rather also seen from a transformational perspective. So how is that change going on? How does it shape the behavioral side of people in an organization and vice versa? Development state. So there have been quite many studies who looked into the sheer numbers of the projectification, like my colleague, former colleague Ivan Chopa. She looked into the state of projectification in the German economy and found that more than 1/3 in the German economy is produced through projects, which is quite interesting because it shows, let's say, the implications or the progress of projectification. but it does not have a look into, let's say, the social processes, the transformation things. It's barely a statistical phenomenon or observation. And interesting was also that this study was done 10 years later, so more on a longitudinal perspective, and that showed also some very interesting insights into the social processes associated with that. Some phrase it as a human condition, so that would point also into our special edition more. So what is that doing with the humans? Professor Jensen from Denmark focused very much on that. And he's saying everything is a project, everyone is doing all the time projects, which is also debated or criticized. But he was also looking, so what does that do with the humans in that? So, and then on the macro level, we're also looking into projectification of society. So you see, we are spanning several levels of our society from the micro through the meso to the macro. Some also have even like Beata Jalocho more levels that they take into account. So it's quite multifaceted that we look into this projectification. Our focus, as you see here in the text, is understanding the human dimension more, because there's scarce literature on what does projectification do with the people in this process. How can the people, the individuals, basically contribute to the projectification? So it's always in both directions. And how do they enact their agency? And how do they identify themselves in these social processes and contribute towards a value creation? So we can look through different lenses into that, like the self-determination theory, which basically says that every human wants to self-actualize, grow own competences, and belong to a certain group, which is basically what we offer in projects. So we have to understand what is this process of projectification basically doing with the people in scope. As you see also in the text, more in the middle part, scholarship has very much looked into the organizational perspectives. So looked into what is the transformation going on in an organization using more and more projects. Also looking into the professionalization of project management, which means establishment of project management offices, talking about governance, talking about portfolio management. Because the more you do projects, you also have to manage it from a more bigger picture view. Many, and that's also my perspective, have looked into institutional perspectives based on institutional theory, and also looking into behavioral aspects of that. So it's quite interesting to really look through different lenses and perspectives to that. So the aim, and you see that bold written text, is to address all those who directly or indirectly shape or contribute to or participate in or are affected by the process of projectification. And that's seen from a very interdisciplinary and multidimensional perspective. And this is what we are looking for as contributions. Now, the contribution should or could address how individual agency shapes and is shaped by the ongoing projectification of work, so more on the micro level, but could also look into macroeconomic effects, which is also not well researched at the moment. Then how people exercise autonomy and their creativity and resistance within temporary, fluid, and institutional constrained settings. Because sure, there is research and also some publications like our colleague Kalf also looked into, that baby projects also can be seen as kind of a prison if they are really organized, like with a very strict regime of project management processes and methodologies and so on. So where's the freedom of the people to enact their autonomy or their seek or agency in that context? So that's also quite interesting perspective, building on Foucault's philosophy. But also looking into other perspectives, like how individuals navigate boundaries, construct meaning, and influence structure that both enable and limit their action. And that's also building on other, let's say, theoretical streams that we see in this context. I don't want to read all that, but I want to make you aware of that there are many, let's say, perspectives that we could look at in this research. And it should be empirical or at least conceptually sound, building on previous research. And now I just show some perspectives that I found in literature, and some of us contributed to that. So here is the second research of projectification in German economy after 10 years. So Andreas Wald and Helge Ingerson and a colleague from Iceland, we all displayed that social process in this illustration, which I find very interesting because it argues that from a macro perspective, we have a lot of economic pressures for organizations to cope with the market competitiveness of other countries and other industry players, etc., which translates into action on the micro level, using projects for innovation, using projects for, let's say, disruption. But that also means that individuals acting on behalf of that organization in this setting have to use projects, have to adapt to that in innovative settings, like in a startup project, etc. And that shapes their behavior, maybe on a long run. And with that behavior, they contribute also maybe to an institutional setting, which then has an impact on an industry or an organization, an industry level or on society level, how these organizations or the society responds to that pressures. I'm always explaining that example of German automotive industry, which is under very competitive pressure here, which has to really do disruptive, innovative projects in e-mobility and many other aspects. And so they had to change very significantly from a more mass production type of projects to a very innovative and agile and let's say, disruptive way of doing projects because of that pressure from the industry level. Here you see a very quite new paper. Also, Shankaran is involved in that. And I think that's also looking into the institutional forces, how they shape and are shaped by projects. And that's quite interesting also that they look from an institutional environment into, let's say, the pressures on the institutional work and agency on the micro level, and how is that translated from macro through meso into a micro level effect. So we would seek papers that would look more into the impact on the micro level. But certainly, I think you also need to show the interrelationships to the embedding environment, which is, I think, very important in projects, as there's one paper, projects are no island. So we should not see projects just isolated as an island, because there are many influences that I'm also looking at in my research. Here is also another paper, also with the concept of deprojectification. So since I think last year we see also the deprojectification concept coming up. It's still debated. It's not clear what exactly this is. But where we have a trend, we typically have a counter trend. And so these authors are also looking into why people are not doing things more in the project setting, but in a different setting, like in a product setting or in an agile environment or in a kind of a sequence of projects, like in French, they call it multilineage. But still, there's a notion of projects. But I think it's also very interesting to see why people choose to do projects and why they are choose not to do projects, and what is the impact on the individuals, and how they shape such a counter trend. Also, here you see some arguments or factors that could basically explain that deprojectification. I just pick one here, job satisfaction as a factor, and job satisfaction may be increased through autonomy in projects. But on the other hand, projects end. So maybe if they are seeking more continuous job, so they would rather have a continuous, non-temporary job. And so if they are seeking job security, that would argue more towards a deprojectification. So you see that all has an impact on the individuals, and we are exactly looking for that, putting people at the heart of what's going on. I think that's now 12 years old. Packendorf and Lindgren, they looked into it also from a cultural perspective. You see from a broad view of projectification, project as labels, cultural symbols, and discursive notions was a bit their view, and they drilled it down to what does that mean from a sociological or symbolic perspective. So here you can also look into discourse theory or critical management theory or many other like paradox effects that could be addressed in that regard. Finally, also what I liked, that's quite new. It's more, it's not a project management journal here. It's more looking into grassroots innovations. I'm also working a lot in community work, like in South Africa and the townships. And if you come with project management, they look at you with big eyes and don't know what you're talking about if you talk about project management. But certainly they do projects. And the question is sometimes, how do we tell the story? And that's also quite interesting, that narratives, stories about projects can help on this journey towards a projectification to really frame what we do in projects in a different way and reconfigure social practices and let's say environments like townships of South Africa, or I worked in Nepal in the community sector or women's entrepreneurship projects and so on, because we cannot connect with our project management thinking in such an environment, but still projects and project practices and social practices is something then what they really understand and can pick up and can use. So and that's encouraging for them, and then to see what kind of recommendations would come out of our research. And this is why we should also look into other journals than project management journals. And there's very interesting stuff out, like ethnographic solutions or papers from Egypt, or other developing countries, and it's very interesting. And some of them are even labeled like projectification papers, but they are totally non-popular in the project management literature. And you can go into arts and crafts. I have not displayed that here, but I'm also looking very much into what's going on in dancing, ballets, or theaters. And there you also find a lot of project practices which are not mainstream in the project management literature, but can also be used in this. So, how is an artist, let's say, doing his or her project, and how is that in a behavioral way shaping also the environment of reproduction or replication of that practice for the next performance, and what does that do with the let's say company, the dancing company, or the environment, and basically also then the whole art scene in a certain area. So to meet these aims, the special issue will, you can read here, also look into different aspects of it. We want to uncover also novel empirical evidence from areas like I just explained, maybe arts and crafts, development, community work, so non-industry work, and that's very interesting. And by that also discovering hidden narratives and hidden impacts that are neglected by now in our journals or in the classical journals. And I think that's especially what ijMPB is also looking for. And also, again, here, encouraging robust methodological pluralism. It also means action research, narrative inquiry, mixed methods approaches, anyway, qualitative approaches. I think it's more relevant than too much of quantitative stuff. Here we have also highlighted that we really want to use an interdisciplinary or encourage interdisciplinary research like psychology, philosophy, sociology, and also call for underrepresented voices, which is quite interesting in understudied professions. NGOs, I'd like to mention or highlight here alternative modes of organizing. I'm very much into Ubuntu, which is philosophy of life, or maybe a concept that is very instrumental in South Africa, also for management and projects and so on. I'm in the process of publishing also an article on that. Democratic firms. Right now, I have a PhD student that looks into social enterprises, which are not for profit, but also not non-for-profit, or marginalized populations, and basically also the global south. So that's, I think, very interesting for us. Here's the list of themes. You will also find that in our call. I don't read all this, but I think there should be something that's of interest. But that's by no way limiting you to push your own topic. And if you have a question whether a topic suits our call, then just maybe send us an email and ask me whether this suits in general. And then I can point you to one of these topics or help you and assist you, whether it's the right outlet here or maybe other outlets would be suitable, because we can also point you to other special issues of the ijMPB, or how you can really tailor it to the needs of our special issue. But then you have to go through the rigid double-blind process, sure. But we had one paper now where the authors just asked whether a certain topic or area would suit our special issue, and we encouraged them, and so they made it through the whole process, which I found very interesting for our special issue. Okay, I'm not repeating what Francesco already said, but I think here again, Also, what does not fit to the paper, also not the special issue. And I rejected already a few of the proposals because I found them not in the scope of our special issue. So there was nothing about the humans. There was nothing about project management or projectification or project setting. So it was something else. And then I replied to the authors to say, I'm sorry, that is not in scope, or it's not fit as an empirical or research paper. So you may try with another journal or with another outlet. Still, that's always possible, but not here. But I think that's enough from my side. So I would be happy really to answer your questions or ideas or comments. I see Helgi. Welcome. Helgi, do you want to add something? I just presented our ideas, and maybe you can also bring your perspective from Iceland.
Well, you did an excellent job, Reinhard, so there's not much to add. So I think no, actually, I think I just leave it like that. So, but of course, I'm happy to answer questions if there are any questions.
Okay. So now it's time for questions. Is there any? I think you can unmute or just make
something
yourself.
that I want to clarify, Reinhard, is that you provide a very interesting and compelling overview of projectification and the pressure, a different level of analysis. Yeah. Is the focus of the special issue exclusively on the people level of analysis? So it is not about people, yeah, because this is what the call is, right? People at the Heart of Projectification. So we want the unit of analysis at the individual level. Is that correct?
That's correct, but I explained at the beginning that there's many interrelationships and so on. And if you now look at the societal level, so there's an interrelationship between the people, okay, on the micro level, working on projects. But there's a spillover and back to the macro level. So what does that do with the societal? So like the effects in the community, in the townships, etc. So there will be always an effect on the meso and the macro level. And we are interested not only just look at the people side, but also what impact does that have on the macro and meso level. So it's the interrelationship, the interaction, so to say.
Absolutely clear. Yeah. Any other question that you may have for this call?
Or comments, welcome. Criticism. Ole, yeah.
Ole.
Good to see you.
Hi, good to see you all. I came to this webinar because I'm doing a lot of work on value creation these days. That's sort of my focus at the moment. So I'm thinking, in your headline, you related to value creation. Can you be a little bit more specific, elaborate a little bit on
Good.
What do you imagine in terms of value creation in this context?
Again, people are at the heart of what we do in projects. And now value creation could take many forms. Sure, in industry, like automotive, we look into tangible profits and products and all this stuff. But if you look into, let's say, for example, a township, value creation in a project could be the education of marginalized groups, young people, and so on. And so that value creation helps them to come out of a township or a certain community environment and develop themselves into, let's say, Stellenbosch University, encourage them to start their master's or bachelor's or whatever degree. And that could be seen as a value creation because you contribute towards their education value. Now, let's look for the artists. Sometimes also the question is, what is value creation? But you see an artist creates value in a performance, but then has to monetize because he has to sell tickets maybe for the dancing performance, etc., or sells the product of, let's say, the art object, whatever he's creating. And that's very interesting to see also the differences between value creation in our industry way of thinking. Because we start with a contract with a project charter where we get a budget and then we spend the budget in the project. But in an arts and dancing environment, it's just the opposite. So you invest yourself in value creation and later, hopefully, you get some money back and so on. And that process is at the heart of our way. But linking again, how do people do that in the context of projects and how that spills over maybe to the meso level and the macro level of our research. Does that fit a bit in your picture and your research?
Helps a lot. And I'm interpreting this as you are not thinking of a specific definition of value in this context.
No. I'm right now working in ijMPB on the OCB standard, which is the organizational competence line, where we have very clear definition of what is an output, an outcome, a benefit, and so on. But we are here totally broad because the value creating can be innovation, can be education, can be, I don't know.
Good, thank you.
Music. Helgi, for example, is playing a lot of music with his band and so on. So, Helgi, how would you formulate the value that you contribute through your music?
Well, in my case, it's mostly the value for the musicians actually, but when the audience is happy, then that's extra bonus. So
The
that's
applause,
it's a very good point. I mean, the value that depends very much on the perspective. But yeah, in my case, it's more about the value of the individuals playing the music. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not saying that value creation in the industrial environment is irrelevant. I'm sure it is also relevant. But I just wanted to encourage that other perspectives also welcome.
Yeah, we mainly tend to see value creation or co-creation a quite higher level. Yeah, we focus a lot on the value that project have to create to society. So this has been a very high focus on a recent debate on value creation or co-creation. So the inclusion of stakeholders, value for whom? So questioning the purpose of the organization. Of course, there is the economic value that then is another perspective, right? That comes to the sponsor side, the customer, the supply chain, and the value that they should get from an economic perspective. But what is really interesting from this role probably is how people interact and how those interactions shapes the value that will be created. Yeah, because this is how people actually make decision, right? And how people interact, cooperate, or collaborate in order to make the organization functioning for a purpose. And this is extremely important, right? So the player as his own, playing music has his own value because he's enjoying probably what he does, and then at the same time his value for who is listening, and at the same time his value economically for the place, a venue that charges ticket for it. So value for whom, and when we actually questioning this perspective, we push them down to the individual level. I think lots of good work can be done.
Absolutely. And this translation of this value creation discussion, Francesco, I think is necessary because we lose now out of sight a lot the, let's say, non-professional environments. When we talk a lot about sponsors and whatever, but what's with the donors? The mechanism of value creation is very different in areas where you have a donor, a foundation that offers money, and then you have a mediator in between sitting and so on. Then someone is doing projects, etc. So it's more complex than in the industry.
Absolutely, yes. Linjo.
Okay, Linjo.
Yeah, I think this is a great cover paper, and especially agree with your earlier slides that you say you're saying that there's a need to connect with the broader general management literature, because based on my recent investigation with some of the practitioners, I understand that some of the projects they were used by the companies as a way to test the new technologies or ways of deliver value. Eventually, they want to change these projects into their regular operation to generate value for the long run. I think your cover paper allow for the discuss a field that allows us to engage with the broader general management literature, saying how projects can be used for a test ground and to test for new materials, new technology, new ways of collaborations. Eventually, people can use this for more long-term, general, regular operations. So to deliver value in that way. Yeah, I think that this is rather a comment rather than a question, but I think this is a very interesting cover paper. I'm not sure whether people within, like, for instance, project management literature or field would be interested in doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's everywhere where you have a transition, transformation, change, innovation. I don't know. And our world is right now exactly in that situation where we have a lot of transitions to manage, but I'm a bit reluctant to use that word management because management is far too narrow. So this is why I'm rather talking about project organizing or maybe also improvisation or improvising, exploring, whatever words you would use. And I think that's more relevant also to our call than these management concepts. We have to overcome that management because that's old school. And in our dynamic world now, we have to discover something new. And I think that's the call about. Or maybe we can start something new.
Very good. I think we reached the end. Yeah, exactly 1 hour from when we start. I don't know if any of you got any final remark for Reinhard, but we are here, yeah, to help develop your idea. Please get in touch with the associate editors if you have something in mind. Just provide them an extended abstract to see if your idea fits into the call. I'm sure that Reinhard and the team will be able and happy to engage with you further in order to develop a stronger paper that can be submitted and we fly hopefully through the review process. Thank you very much for everything. Thank you everyone for attending. Yeah, I wish you a lovely day. Hopefully it's warm over there as well. Here
Stay
it's
cool.
very, very warm and we enjoy the weather. So take care and I wish you a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.